Hello and welcome back to another episode of Ruining Your Childhood.
Welcome back to another episode of Ruining Your Childhood, one sculpt at a time. A couple weeks ago I made a post on here seeing who you guys would want me to sculpt next, and to my surprise, you guys all said Courage the Cowardly Dog, and honestly I'm not really surprised because these lovely folk right here, they've been all telling me for months to sculpt Courage. So today we are going to be sculpting Courage the Cowardly Dog. To start the build, we're going to go ahead and take a piece of aluminum foil, then bend it, mold it, and fold it until we get ourselves a nice bean shape. Happy with the size and shape, we go ahead and cover that in a flattened out piece of clay, rolling it out with the palm of my hand and rolling out on its end to get a smoother surface. Now that I'm happy with how the body's turning out, we can go ahead and start on his eyes. For the eyes, I just took a pre-baked ball of clay that I sliced in half, then using my thumbs I force it into his head. Then it's time to build out his snout. Taking a ball of clay, I smash it with my thumb, and kind of just work around until I get a nice, almost duckbill shape. Slice off a little half U shape, that way I can help form fit it to the face. Once I put it on, it kind of actually looks like Psyduck or Perry the Platypus. Speaking of those characters, who would you like me to sculpt next? Let me know in the comments. Moving along, we go ahead and pinch off a little loaf of clay that I taper off on one end, making almost a teardrop shape. Apply this over the eyes. This is going to help build up those eyebrow ridges. Happy with the placement of those clay chunks, I take my small ball stylus and just blend that clay in to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. As for Courage's nose, we just took a piece of clay, then made it into a triangle shape. Go around with my finger, making sure I round off the edges to make it a little bit more smooth, and place it on the front. Once I'm happy with the size, I go ahead and take my small ball stylus and give him some big old schnoz holes, because you know he's a sniffer, this one. Take my ball stylus, give him a little crease on the bottom for some added detail. I then add a couple pieces of tapeworm underneath his eye to build up his lower eye bags. His snout kind of covered up the original eyelids, so this is just to help bring those back. Use my ball stylus and rubber sculpting tool to smooth it out and also give it some texture. And now we're on to Courage's busted but yet enduring smile. Start off by using some pre-baked teeth that I made off camera, using some translucent clay. I really like the way that this looks when it hardens. Kind of gives it like a natural yellowed look. I do use some white paint to kind of make them a little bit brighter in the end, but I do like the way they look, very tooth-like. After I got those in the proper positions, I go ahead and start adding his lower lip by rolling out a piece of tapeworm. I want him to have that concerned face, but also showing his teeth because they are so signature to this character. I remember when I was a little kid, I used to think the hole in Courage's tooth was so cool. I really wanted one myself, so I took a drill. No, I'm just kidding. Still is actually kind of cool. It's a very interesting design that they put on this character. I wonder why they did that. Anyway, now that I got the mouth all complete, we could go ahead and start adding his chin by taking a nug of clay, then rolling it out to the proper size, then taking a couple of different sculpting tools and ball styluses and blending that into the face. I take a silicone sculpting tool just to finish off the mouth before taking my smallest ball stylus and punching a few holes on the side of his face. This is where the whiskers are gonna go. Actually, don't think I filmed myself installing the whiskers, but all I use is some fishing line, cut to the right size, and then I put those in the holes, using a little bit of super glue to hold them in, and then I paint those. With the main structure of Courage's face done, we could go ahead and start adding some details. I took these texture tools that I made a while back, and I just rubbed it across the nose. This gives it a nice little bumpy texture. I felt like he was pretty reminiscent to a dog's nose. Once I was happy with how that looked, we could go ahead and start on the grueling process of adding all of his hair. Now I did have the thought, because he is like a pinkish purple, maybe he doesn't actually have hair. Never actually really thought about that. Maybe he's just been running around raw dogging it this whole time. That sounded so bad. But if you think about it, he's purple. Why is he purple? It doesn't make much sense. But we're gonna give him fur just because it just felt wrong. Anyway, now that he's done, we could stick him in the oven for the first bake. And with Courage back and baked to a crispy perfection, we could go ahead and start on his ears. For the ears, we're gonna go ahead and use a piece of armature wire just to make sure that they don't bend or break later on in the process, or I get the right size that I'm looking for. I go ahead and coat that in an oven bake adhesive. I then take that piece of wire, lay it on top of a thin piece of skin flap, roll it over top of itself, rip off the excess, then I go back in with my fingers just to shape and mold and fold until I get that proper Courage the Cowardly Dog ear shape that we're looking for. Made a second one off camera, then we could go ahead and stick those in the oven. Last second, I did decide I was going to stick the ears into the head and cook it all together. I think they would just make it a little bit more permanent. For Courage's arm, I went ahead and rolled out a piece of tapeworm. I sliced it in the center. Then take those arm chunks, applying them to the side of the body, then wrapping it around to the front of the mouth. Take the end of my X-Acto knife, blending it in. Then taking the blade, I go ahead and start introducing some of that hair texture. It was at this point I decided I actually didn't want both of his hands under his mouth, and I wanted one of his arms to be holding a flashlight, so I kind of just positioned it where I thought it should go. Then I just peeled that off, drilled a quick hole with my drill. I stuck a small piece of armature wire in there to give it some stability. Then I re-sleeved it with that same piece of clay that I was using for the arms as last time. Blended it in with my small ball stylus, and then I finished up the hair using my X-Acto knife. I was happy with how the arms were looking, so we could go ahead and start on his little hands. Or paws, if you will. For this, we just start off with a small ball of clay that we stick on the end of his wrist, using my ball stylus to kind of blend it in before shaping out the fingers, then blending the rest in and adding that hair detail. As for the other hand, he is going to be holding a flashlight that I made off camera, but it's made pretty much the exact same way, by taking a ball of clay, cramming it onto the wrist, then using my knife and some ball styluses to add in the hair and detail to the fingers. I then use some oven bake adhesive to help hold on the flashlight, and then we could go ahead and stick this in the oven for a quick bake before applying the legs. After taking Courage out of the oven and let him fully cool down, I drilled a couple holes to insert these armature wires, and then we can start the enclaying process. I start off by coating the wires with some oven bake adhesive, then I wrap around some skin flap, cutting off the excess, blending it smooth, and then adding all that hair in again. And with the hair done, we could go ahead and start on his little paws on the feet. Feet paws? Bottom paws. Meta paws? What? I just take a ball of clay, slice it in half, then take those two little pieces, sticking them onto the front of those leg stubs, and using my ball stylus, I go ahead and draw in the toes and follow up with some hair. And with Courage pretty much fully done, we could go ahead and stick him in the oven for its final bake. After taking him out of the oven, I decided I was going to just prime him white to make it a little bit easier for me to add the paint. And as for the paint job, there's really not too much going on with this character, considering he is primarily just this pinkish purple. After multiple thin layers, I got this nice coat. Using that initial color and some black paint, I mix up a darker version of that color that I really water down and then let it just sink into the recesses and then dab off the extra. I then make a lighter version, then dry brush that over the top just to make those hairs pop a little bit more. I then mix up a slightly redder version of that initial color to put on his lips and under eye bags just to make them pop a little bit more. Now as for Courage's eyes, we are going to make these things hella bloodshot because he's seen some stuff, you know what I'm saying. So we're going to go ahead and start with an off-white color followed by a light pink wash that I wet blend around the eye. I then add an absurd amount of veins, which I cut back using a white wash of that same initial white color that I used before. This helps blend everything together and make it a little bit more cohesive. Before adding the pupils of the eye, we're going to go ahead and let those dry, but in the meantime we can start working on its nose and ears. For the ears and nose, we're going to go ahead and give it a black base coat, followed by a dark brown dry brushing over the top just to make them pop a little bit. As for Courage's flashlight, we're going to go ahead and start with a black base coat, followed by a silver dry brushing over top just to make it pop a little more. And we're going to try our best to make it look like it's glowing and on, so we're going to start by painting the inside with an off-white with a little bit of a darker yellow rim. Then I leave the light bulb white just to make it look like it's on. And now that the eyes are fully dry, we could go ahead and add his pupils by dipping the end of my sculpting tool into some black paint, then painstakingly trying to find the center and make sure that the eyes are as round as possible. And for some reason I forgot to hit record when I was putting on these eyebrows, but if you want to see how I make eyebrows like this, check out my Captain Knuckles video. And to finish off the paint job on Courage, we just have to flip him around and give him these spots. I just used the same black paint that I used for the nose and the ears, and once I was done with those, we could go ahead and start on his base. Using a piece of 3x3 foam and some coffee stirrers, we're going to go ahead and make a wooden floor. I went ahead and cut all the coffee stirrers off camera to their proper lengths. I'll then take those sticks and glue them to the top of the piece of foam. I intentionally kind of make them staggered and not so perfect just to match the house that they live in the middle of nowhere. And once I get all the little coffee stirrers glued into place, we could go ahead and take the back end of my X-Acto knife, making scratches and different wood grains across the top. I really want it to look weathered and worn. And to finish it off, I just go over top of it with a wood varnish that I had laying around, using a sponge to apply it. And with some last second surprise detailing and a little bit of assembly, we're on to those glamour shots. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, and also leave a comment down below of who you would like to see me sculpt next. I'll see you next time.